Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Keynes, and Ed Mann.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe. I am joined by my wonderful co-host Ed Mann.
Hello.
Lewis Keynes.
Good evening.
And tonight I'm very pleased and really grateful to have Dayle Rees on the show. Hi Dayle.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me tonight.
Our privilege. Yeah, absolutely.
If people actually turn up. I love you, Miggy.
We're good to go. Yeah.
What show number is this now? What are we up to? Is this the big 30?
No, it's 31 now. It's crazy.
31. Right.
31, that's a shame. I turned 30 this year. It would be nice to have that matching.
Yeah, I've just turned 31.
I just turned 30 as well.
It's a difficult time, right?
Have you been on many of these podcasts, Dale? Have you been doing the rounds like Phil had the other week, or?
No, I don't get asked often, so this is a privilege for me.
Oh wow!
I'm shocked.
Yeah, he's shocked. Yeah, I thought you'd be. I was thinking when you said yes, I was like, yay!
I think they expect a Welsh accent and difficulty with that or something. Yeah, could well be.
Well, I for one am happy to say that you're my number one Laravel learning source. I have both of your books, Code Bright and Code Happy, and they're both absolutely brilliant. So I want to just thank you personally for those, and I did pay for them, of course.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
How's everyone anyway? How's all your weeks been? Are we all busy at the moment? Sounds like we all are. We all sound a bit tired this evening.
Yeah.
And hot and bothered because it's a nice sunny day outside.
Yeah. Definitely worn out from this heat.
How's your week going, Mike?
Yeah, my week is it is pretty frantic. Just I've got a month till the baby's due now, a month and a bit. So it's just it is pretty crazy. And like you say, the heat. It's not a week for programming, is it? To be fair, but I've done a little bit this week. Kind of. It sounds really bad, but like I told you guys, I'm really behind, and certainly in the PHP game because of my uni study. So this week just had a look at a couple of basics, really, just kind of had a little play, nothing too serious, like anonymous functions. And
I did see your blog post. I saw it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I read it, obviously, as well.
And just sort of had a little bit of an explore of callbacks, really. And that's about it, really, for me, to be honest. Nothing too exciting.
When does all the uni stuff kick off again?
September.
Right.
Get my exam results at the end of July. I've just requested my module choices. So
do you actually remember what these module choices are?
Oh, man, I'm going to try to remember now. So one is C++ programming.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Is it? Or are you guys being sarcastic? I don't know.
No, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, all right.
All right. Whoa, what?
I went for something a bit different. I went for graphics and animations.
Okay.
So I know that won't be real.
OpenGL and stuff like that.
I think so. Yeah. So I could do with learning a little bit more of that. I was thinking as well, like if I go down a bit more down the app development route, it could be something useful to have.
Looking at the money.
No,
at the money. Apps. Sorry.
God, you've embarrassed me in front of Dayle. Shocking. What else have I picked?
Functional programming?
No.
Why not? It's got Erlang, it's got Haskell.
I know.
Simon
I did
Thompson.
think about it. I could hear you in my head screaming, doing functional programming, but
it's a functional skill.
The problem is like that we've been living by this mantra of what would Ed do for so long, and now we're kind of rebelling against it.
It's very true, actually. Yeah, he does cast a pretty big shadow, I have to say.
Because I'm huge. That's no.
And I think I have to do advanced Java programming, which I know you didn't like, right?
It was okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the core modules, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that one as well.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
I'm not the biggest Java fan.
Yeah.
But the module itself was kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And there's one more, but I can't remember what it is. So, but that's my week. How about you, Luke?
My week's going pretty well. It's gone really, really busy again. But I'm in the thick of a pretty decent site now. It's for an alarms company, and there's quite a lot of theming involved. There's like a private element and a commercial element and stuff. So a lot of the coding and database management and all that stuff's got to be done with all this theming in mind. So it's been quite an interesting challenge. I haven't actually done a massive amount of coding, but I've done a lot of stuff writing a lot of stuff down on paper. I'm like trying to get it right in my head first, before I actually go ahead, because it's not. I mean, I've never actually tackled a site that's required that before. But it's when you scale it down to all the complexities that it involves, it's quite a lot to involve, especially when things like using different style sheets and different view files for each theme and stuff, and trying to make that as simple and streamlined as possible.
How did you go about that? Because these days I always babble about it, but I always find it best off to start off with like a pen and a pad. Is that your kind of process, or do you just kind of dive in and then see where it takes you? Or?
It's more so the pen and the pad these days. I think I've had my fingers burnt too many times by going in headlong first.
Just hack it together, innit? That's the idea of development. You just hack it together.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I draw out a lot of spider diagrams and stuff. I use a lot of those and make notes of what table fields and things I think I'm going to need. If I figure, I've kind of got to the point now where I've learned if I can't get it right on paper first, I'm not going to get it right when I'm doing it. And one of the things that I've really grown to hate now is having to go back over stuff and change it, not because I've got it wrong, but because the plan wasn't right in the first place. So trying to avoid that at all costs is important to me now.
Do you guys use a whiteboard at home at all for side projects or freelancing or anything like that?
I do actually have like a small whiteboard, that I use.
It's got to be one of the best things to have in the house.
Just for jotting stuff around, and you can. And then when you think that was stupid, you can just quickly get it right. It's like goodbye, no one saw that.
Yeah, I find that being a dev as well, I'm terrible with tiny pens. You know, my hands will ache after about a minute of usage. But these big stubby whiteboard markers, they keep me going.
So I have one for my uni work, but I do find that like, my wife ends up like writing on loads of chores on there for me. So it's kind of
it's not just you then, is it? Oh, crikey!
Does she try to sneak them into your original plans of action, or like just trying to sneakily slide them in so you don't realise you're doing them?
Exactly. I've got like on the
code while cleaning your dishes,
while washing dishes.
I just end up doing them without realising I'm
parallel programming.
There is one really important thing we need to talk about this week before we get on to Dayle, I think, and that's our good friend Fraser.
Yeah,
and everything that he's been through this week. Dayle, are you familiar with Fraser and all the stuff that's been going on in the row? And
I'm afraid not. No. I've been catching up slowly on the podcast.
Oh, he's made the news this week.
Oh wow!
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Well, yeah.
Do you want to fill me in?
Yeah, everyone's just crazy. Goodbye.
Well, he's basically, they embarked last week on this row from California to Hawaii, which I think it's like just over 2,000 miles, and the plan was basically they're going to be 2 hours on, 2 hours on. It's a team of 4, basically rowing the whole way across. Yeah, it's supposed to take about 5 weeks, and
it sounds insane. So
sounds absolutely insane, and
that's amazing.
Is
that a personal challenge, or is he doing it for charity?
Bit of both, I think, isn't it? I think
it's a combination.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So they kicked it off last week, and they got, I don't know, it must have been about 3 or 4 days in, and I think they were still less than 100 miles off land, but a good 70, 80, which is far, probably out of sight of land at that point, I would think. And their boat started taking on water, and basically, long story short, they had to abandon, and they had to be airlifted and rescued and stuff. And particularly in the southeast over here, it's made big news. So Fraser. Yeah, if you hear this, Fraser, we hope you're all right. We look forward to having you back on. And well,
he's in Las Vegas at the moment, so he's fine.
I'm sure he's over it by now. Then.
Yeah, he's just like, he's Las Vegas, Las
Vegas. Story? I can't wait to hear about it from him directly. I think it's an interesting story to have to tell afterwards, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Ed, man? I saw you had a bit of a pub crawl the other day or something.
Yeah, that wouldn't go really well. Pub trek,
Pub trek.
That wasn't. Yeah, that was kind of messy.
Pubs usually end that way.
One thing I did notice today was your design for your website.
It's nice,
it was. Yeah, I'm looking forward to you to build this thing. I want to see it on live.
Where did you see this?
It was over Skype.
Basically, the guy that I commissioned to design the site for me basically took basically just a screenshot of edman.com, right? And then just photoshopped out the Edman and put Michael Budd in there. Yeah. So I think it was genius, to be honest with you.
All that
I would
for,
like to do.
You know, that is perfect.
Just
did
upset Ed.
Did he maintain the brown element that Joe Watkins
I know, missing the brown, you know.
Oh man,
that's a form of compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, so yeah, Picasso, like real true artist steal or something.
Yeah. Anything else exciting? Anything you've learned this week?
Don't drink on an empty stomach. That's a pretty normal one, I think, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't. No, not really. It's been pretty okay. Yeah, pretty simple.
Right.
Unfortunately.
How about you, Dayle? I don't. Feel free not to comment if you're working on anything that's top secret. But have you got anything you've been working on this week that you'd like to share? Or
this week mostly it's been occupied by my work and in the evening writing. So no hacking away on stuff this week. Well, apart from in work, obviously.
Yeah.
That's been most of my time so far. But
how much
not sleeping?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How much of your spare time does writing take up for you then? Like when you're writing a book or something like that?
I do it in chunks, but it depends how I feel about writing in the night. Sometimes you sit down and with the intention to write and you just don't feel it. And I find that forcing yourself when you get into that state, it just doesn't lead to anything productive. So I give up and I'll go and play with something at that point. It's rare that I'll go and play a game or something. I'll start hacking with something. But most evenings, I'd say I'll give it a go and see how it works, especially when I'm technically writing 2 books side by side at present. So it takes a lot of time.
Is this PHPandas and Code Happy or Code? Sorry, which one's the newest one? Code Happy is the second one, isn't it? Code Bright. Sorry, that's embarrassing.
It's okay, not a problem. It's similar names. Those two. So I'm writing a book called PHPandas, which is an introduction to PHP. It's more of a syntax book that someone who's never taken part in any form of development before can pick up and get started with PHP development. And then, of course, I've got Code Bright, which is my beginner's title for the Laravel framework that's slowly turning into Encyclopedia Laravel, I guess.
The Bible.
Yeah.
How many pages are you up to now with that?
I think we're 400 or so, over 400 now. 413 or something like that. I predict it to be, with what I've planned out, and again, this tends to change because I'll add in new chapters if people request them or if they want to know about something specific. But I imagine the book's probably going to be about 650 pages in its finished form. So looking forward to getting that printed and on the shelf. Just to weigh down the shelf.
Yeah.
I really like your writing style, actually. I tend to do most of my learning from videos, but I definitely found that the Laravel books you wrote were far easier to learn from than any of the videos, really. I like Jeffrey Way's videos, but I mean,
Laracast is fantastic. So
absolutely brilliant. But I mean, the whole way you write the introduction definitely sets the scene to get people to want to read on and learn it. So
that's what I like to hear. Thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, big fan, honestly. Yeah, I love both books, and I don't do an awful work with Laravel at the moment, but in the projects where I have been working on it, I'm constantly referring back to various bits and bobs. So
that's brilliant. I've been told by a lot of people that they tend to keep. Have you seen the mini site I had for Code Bright? It's essentially got all of the content of the book up online for free. But a lot of people keep that tab open as a reference tab in their browser while they're working day to day with Laravel, and I think those are the only hits I get on my website.
It's like, come to my other website, come to my from.
Oh, you mean I didn't have to pay for it?
You didn't have to pay for it. No.
All right,
knowledge should be free, but if they choose to pay to support my writing, that's just gravy, right?
And I did. So
I think there's something to be said for having like a physical resource like a book, though. Like, especially if you go away on holiday or something. Okay, maybe you shouldn't be learning about programming on your holiday, but it's something nice, I think, personally. But yeah, I'm not taking away the fact that the web is an amazing resource for stuff like that. But definitely something to be said for having the book, I think.
I agree. You don't want a full website on a laptop or iPad when you're settling down to bed or something. I tend to read a lot before bed.
Absolutely. If nothing else, you feel like you've actually got away from the computer for the day, even if you're reading about programming. So
even if you're still on an e-reader, it's not pull yourself away completely. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Have you got any future book plans then, or are these? I mean, these are obviously all big projects at the moment, so they're probably going to be taking up quite a lot of your time in the future.
I've got a few ideas for definite. I like writing books for beginners. I just feel like it's a really, really fun to be able to impact on someone and help them learn a new skill. And also, a lot of the feedback that you get is really rewarding when you help out beginners. So I'd still like to write introductions to things. Maybe I do a lot of front end work as well, so maybe like a CSS book.
That'd be cool.
But like the idea of that. That's one that's been on the back burner for a while. What else? People keep asking me to write an Objective-C book, but given that I don't really know Objective-C, I feel like I probably should get started now. But that's my we're all learning something in the background, and Objective-C is the thing I'm learning at the moment. So maybe at some
What happened
point.
when Swift came along and it completely changed?
When Swift came out, I was watching the keynote, as most people were, I assume.
Little tear, or
no, huge excitement.
Yeah.
I despise the syntax of Objective-C. It's horrible to approach as a learner.
Something different, isn't it? It is.
Definitely. So I was completely excited. I grabbed the book, and not knowing anything about iOS dev, I read the entire Swift book that night.
Oh, wow.
So I could say that I can just about write Swift code now, but I can't make apps of any kind. So it's the most useful language that I've got in my toolkit. Useless language in my toolkit.
What are the standout features of Swift code? I think I read you can return multiple objects, can you, or something in your methods with Swift?
Yeah,
is that right?
It's called a tuple, so like a set of results. Yeah. There's a bunch of different types of structures there. I probably couldn't name them now because it's been a while since I read the book. But being mostly a web developer, I was kind of impressed by the range of structures you could use. I don't know if they're there in Objective-C either, because I know a lot of it can be translated across.
Yeah.
But it's a fantastic looking language. It's very, I'd say it's very JavaScriptish without all of the crazy callbacks. Maybe.
I think I'd agree with that, and I think you don't deal with memory allocation or any of that fun stuff. I think you have pointers and stuff like that. I think they kind of abstract that away, but you can still use it.
You can still use it if you want to.
That's the beautiful thing about it, having that power, but not having to use it all the time and get burnt.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting seeing how traditional Objective-C coders take to it. So in my learning, I thought, hey, I've gone and looked at Swift and I like it. I want to learn some iOS dev. So I picked up an Objective-C book and I figured, hey, why don't I try and translate this line for line into Swift as I go along? That wasn't the best idea, as it happens. It took forever to learn something simple doing it that way. So now I'm back on Objective-C, unfortunately.
Do you think other people who really swear by Objective-C, or is it literally they were kind of like forced to program it because of the building apps and stuff like iOS?
I don't think they've had a lot of choice really, other than these these sort of web view type stopgaps, I guess you could call them.
Yeah.
So I guess they haven't had a lot of choice. Maybe they're conditioned to like the language.
Yeah.
Or maybe they really do, and it's just me that doesn't enjoy the syntax. I think that once the educational materials for iOS dev they catch up, and a few of them switch over to Swift, I think we're going to see a massive influx of iOS devs.
Yeah.
It's going to attract a lot of people.
Yeah. So I think we had some questions to throw at you, if that's okay.
Awesome.
The interrogation, Jack Bauer style. Not Jack.
Should I point a lamp?
Lewis, do you want to go first?
Okay, Dayle, I've actually got 13 questions written down here.
Wow.
We obviously don't have to get through them all. Pick a number, 1 to 13.
I like 7.
7. Oh, okay, yeah. So you've just been talking about the book that you're writing for PHP beginners, PHP Panda. How did you self-learn PHP? What was your kind of route into it?
It was so long ago. I can't remember exactly my process in learning. I know that I started off as somewhat of a script kiddie or a hacker, as I guess a lot of people were back then. So my first experiences with PHP were getting into web development, and once you played around with HTML and CSS for a while, you want something a bit more dynamic. Yeah. And I came across PHP in that way. So lots of procedural scripts and messy things. Like, I think back to it now, I wasn't even using includes right away for repetitive sections of pages, anything like that. An entire mess. That's how I got started. I guess from there on, I got a bit better, and I learned to use includes and to set up my code in such a way to avoid repetition and things like that. But I was still writing procedural code. I suppose as I left uni, that's when I got my first full-time job as a web developer. And I came across the framework scene, started out with CodeIgniter myself, and really got into OO dev from there. So I think that's what started me off along the way.
Awesome.
Did you, sorry to interrupt, did you learn OO and then you applied that with a framework, or you literally came across OO because you were playing with a framework that used OO principles?
I'd used OO with other languages in between this stage. So, I guess you can approach most C-like languages, apart from Objective-C, I'd like to say, in a similar fashion. So doing things with Java and Uni really reinforced to OO, and I guess I kept those principles when I went back to PHP after leaving Uni.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Do you find that PHP's made it easier to learn other languages? Do you see it as a good route into kind of branching out from there?
Well, I've chosen it for this book. I think PHP is a good beginner language now. With all the recent advancements in the language, it's quite powerful. I think it's going to tempt a lot of people, especially with the frameworks we've got. And I've obviously got to mention Laravel there. Laravel's a great way to get started with PHP. I think you don't necessarily, once you've learned the basics of the language, syntax, etc., you could probably go straight into a framework now. You wouldn't have to learn all the design patterns that you might later use day to day. I think Laravel's made the entry barrier for building great things with PHP, and not just Laravel, obviously other frameworks as well. But it's greatly lowered the entry barrier for learning PHP.
Like CodeIgniter 3. Rest in peace. I'm joking. Sorry.
I've still got a lot of love for CodeIgniter.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are your thoughts on the current situation?
I think it's sad, isn't it, that CodeIgniter has kind of died. And I think I'm very similar to you, where, I kind of got into PHP, did it the wrong way at first. Then you kind of look at frameworks like CodeIgniter and you're like, wow, this is awesome. You can build these things up. And I think a lot of developers, like in our kind of age range, they all kind of feel the same way about CodeIgniter, that it was really there at the start.
I think your framework grows with you. It's definitely happened with Laravel, but CodeIgniter is exactly what I needed to get started with the web framework. And I took part in, I found my place in the CodeIgniter community, and there's some amazing guys. They're absolutely amazing devs. So I definitely enjoyed my time with that framework.
Do you find that a lot of them, or most of them, have moved to Laravel? Or do you think there's been other, like Symfony or Zend even, or maybe like Kahana?
I'd say maybe a year after I first switched to Laravel, there was a massive influx of CodeIgniter devs.
I was definitely one of them.
All right, okay. And I think that's where we gained most of our numbers from the CodeIgniter community. But I feel like we're gaining developers from all across the framework gap now. I think people are just liking the really simple and clear approach that we're taking to essentially what is the syntax of the framework. People see the example code and the example documentation, and instantly it's appealing, I think, just from the look of it, if you don't like the whole verbose enterprisey stuff.
That is, exactly. And the documentation's amazing. I don't know if you have a part in that. It's absolutely amazing.
Most of it's Taylor now. It's it's fantastic doc.
So, I mean, that really is kind of the win on any open source software, isn't it? Having good documentation.
It's so important,
simple, quick examples to get, because we're devs, we want to see the nice shiny thing, to see how it works, and then we'll be able to get into it, and having those quick kind of examples is really a good sell.
Yeah, I think it has a really good balance when it comes to examples and actually the text description of what's there.
Yeah.
Because I tend to skim over docs looking at the examples.
Absolutely the same. Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm sure people who are just starting out with it just find as much value in the text that's between them as well.
Yeah.
So
I think the documentation for Laravel's got better and better actually, because I mean, we famously joke about that time that I installed, was it Laravel 3 that I installed at 2 a.m, like after our night out? Or
it's the only way.
It is the only way. But I remember, like, even in my half-drunk state, like, effortlessly installing Laravel, to be honest with you.
The seal of approval. Mickey drunk and you can still understand it.
That should be the QA system. You wouldn't have been able to
do that with Symfony.
I think I'm going to have a talk with Taylor and see if we can get some kind of statistics on drunk installs.
I will happily be your guinea pig at any time.
Oh dear.
With the Laravel documentation, I think I read a tweet or I read something, it might have been from Taylor himself or a while ago or something, but suggesting making a video tutorial for each part of the documentation. Is that something that would ever have actually happened or is likely to happen? Or
I think if we were going to go down that route, we'd probably interact with Laracast.
Yes, I think that would be.
Yeah.
I think
actually, that would be taking away a lot of Jeffrey Way's market share, wouldn't
it? Or helping him out.
I think it would help both. Yeah. I mean, great callus, and then great documentation.
Absolutely.
So I've got kind of like rewinding a bit. Like, how did you get into programming? Like, what drew you to it, kind of as a kid or as a teenager?
So I guess to explain further, I've always been into computers in one shape or form. I got my first one when I was 6. I trashed it. I was formatting it and reinstalling things and just learning how different operating systems work. And I've done other things besides web development, as a lot of us probably have, ranging from like sysadmin to tech support jobs to front end roles and things like that. But what I like more than anything else is creating things. I definitely like building something and seeing it improve gradually as I go along. So what I used to do, I used to hack together websites once I discovered how easy essentially HTML is. Just crafting things, getting some text on screen. It's like, oh look, if I add this, I've got background colors and spinny GIFs and things like this. This is the GeoCities age, obviously.
Oh, the legend.
But,
the golden age.
Golden age for definite. But just seeing things come together and build up and learning new skills that way is something I really enjoy. And I'd say that curiosity brought me towards development in general. I just built on it from there. If I see someone doing something that I'm amazed by, I really want to learn it.
That's it. It's that kind of, it'll eat you, won't it? Just, I want to know how they do that. How do you do that? And yeah.
Sometimes I see illustrators making things, and I suck at drawing. It's one thing I'd love to be good at. I feel like there's a massive gap in my skill set. And that's illustrating, because I love design.
Be like the Y of the PHP world.
It'd be fantastic if I could get the doodles down. I'd definitely go for it. Loads of pandas, chunky bacon and pandas. Awesome. It's creativity and curiosity that drives me.
That's so cool. And so that then brought you went to uni then to study computer science?
I guess I went to uni like most people to gain the qualification that most jobs ask for.
Yep.
But I definitely learned a lot about Java there, and as I said, about OO development, so I don't regret that at all. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was definitely a stage of my career that changed the way that I work.
No one ever comes on the show and raves about Java. That really upsets me. Everyone knows I'm a big Java fan, but there's never any love for it anywhere, is there?
I just find that almost everything that I run that is Java, I kind of have a sigh beforehand. So I'm like, I'll launch Solar and I'll be like, oh God.
Yeah, it's like, oh, loading up the JVM and all that.
And what's the other one? The Atlassian products like Jira, setting up Jira. I think, oh no, not again. Why can't this just be Ruby? Even Ruby would be fantastic instead.
Sorry, Mickey. Sorry.
Well, I think, to be fair, it's my lack of knowledge of other languages. I need to keep on cracking on. I just find it so hard to find the time to keep trying different languages, but I know it's something I need to do better at. But I think more exposure will probably make me lose my love for Java a little bit, maybe.
I think having language pride is never a bad thing, though. I consider myself a PHP dev. I use other languages, but I'm definitely a PHP dev, and I'm sure a lot of people frown.
Do you find people like I find when I say that they're like, "Oh, you're a PHP dev," and then you have to kind of prove to you know, like, "No, look, PHP the right way. We do it the right way now." Laravel, simple, you know, these.
We're learning now.
Yeah, it's like we're grown ups.
We're changing. Yeah. I've been at recruitment events. Where we've said that we're advertising for developer roles, and they come up and they're like, yeah, Java, .NET, yeah, and you just say, no, you know, it's a PHP stack, and you will see a face drop every now and again, or just a look of, are you really developing? Are you sure you're not just spewing out stuff?
Yeah, it's like you're not WordPress sites, is it? You know, just in the mask.
Yeah, I think PHP is just now moving away from that impression. I think we're finally free of that image.
Well, I think it's projects like Laravel that are really doing that, aren't they? That are bringing these new things in and showing you people. And
definitely, I'd say Laravel, Composer, and Fig are they've got to be the main things, the main improvements that we've had recently. So if someone asked me what the the most important project at the moment in PHP is, I wouldn't say Laravel, despite my involvement and crazy enthusiasm for it. I'd say Composer.
Yeah, it's it's just changed the whole ball game, hasn't it? For any PHP project,
it's fantastic. I can't find a way of starting a PHP project without Composer, even if I'm not using a framework.
Completely agree.
I'm really sorry to sound like a complete noob here, guys, but don't worry, I know what Composer is. But I was going to say Fig. I'm not that up
That's
to date
Phil
with.
Sturgeon's thing, isn't it?
We talked. It's the framework interoperability group.
Oh right, I'm not good with acronyms. Sorry.
At podcast 28.
Yeah. Schooled in your own podcast.
That was my research for this podcast. I went and I saw that Phil's there, and he's a fantastic guy, really fun. So I thought, this will be great to have an introduction to your podcast. Yeah. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
Lou, any more questions from your 13?
We'll pick a number.
I think Dayle, go for it.
Let's go for 4.
4. We may have already kind of covered this. It was planning on future books that you'd like to write in the future. So you kind of talked about that with your CSS, didn't you?
Do you want to go and pick one? It's just easier if you've got the list in front of you, I think.
Yeah, this is just cheating, Lou.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've got a good one here actually. We're fortunate enough, hopefully, to have Taylor himself on a show in a couple of weeks or so.
That's it.
He obviously must get asked like the same questions all the time. So we obviously want to make that show interesting. So what kind of subjects do you think we should focus on with him to make it obviously worth his while and stuff?
So interesting questions to ask Taylor.
Yeah.
Any inside jokes that'll be funny?
Stuff where he's not going to think, I've spoken about that a million times. We'll make it a bit different to all the questions that he normally gets asked.
Sure. Inside jokes you were talking about, definitely bring up some references to, have you guys seen Monkey Dust, the old British, very dry humour comedy show?
I haven't, but I will check out on YouTube tonight.
It's sort of, I find that Americans don't really like very dry, edgy British humour, but Taylor absolutely loves it, so I hooked him up with that, and we've got a lot of silly inside jokes based off that show that are probably not suitable for a podcast, actually, given the content of it. But there we go. He loves that stuff. He loves the British Office and that kind of thing. I think the best questions to ask him. You say that you want something different, but just his process of thinking up features and the act of thinking of the end usage before the implementation. I think that's always really interesting. Like the idea of thinking how I'm going to use this component before writing any of the code that actually makes it happen. That's always an interesting process.
I kind of think that one of the advantages that Laravel has over other frameworks is that a lot of these other frameworks kind of get tied down in like kind of like committee type chat about what's going to come in. Whereas with Laravel, it's kind of like still got Taylor at the head of it. And you see him on Twitter all the time saying, should I bring in this? Or what should I bring in next? He's still kind of got that kind of, not that he's a dictator, but, he's still got that.
The BDFL, but no, in a good way.
The control.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
And it keeps it flowing and evolving, I think.
I think it's QA, isn't it? more than anything. That's what I find is useful with it. So there are people that sometimes say, aren't you worried about this being led by one guy? I'm not, in all honesty. When you see what Taylor does with it and how refined the framework is, because he's got that level of QA, because he's got that final decision over things. I definitely just think it's worth it. I don't think we're missing out on anything there. I don't like to turn the conversation to the typical, but what happens if he kicks the bucket tomorrow? But
I won't ask him that one.
When are you planning to kick the bucket?
I really hope it doesn't happen, definitely. But I'm sure the community would pick up his ideology and try and continue with Laravel, because we love what he's doing and we see his intention. Definitely, I try to ensure that it becomes a good tribute to his name.
Perhaps. I suppose that actually, sorry. Luke?
No, all I was going to say quickly is like, what's kind of specifically is your involvement in it, or are you just in like a group with Taylor and Phil and a few of the other guys that are just kind of generally all working together and stuff, or do you have any specific Laravel based roles or?
So like a brief history of my Laravel involvement. I guess I swapped across from CodeIgniter when there was like 3 of us or so using the framework. So this is I think it was version 2.7. It was definitely 2 something. And I was brought in by the docs. I thought they were fantastic, and just the style of it. I was like, it was everything I was jealous of when it came to Ruby, but still with PHP, which is fantastic. So I joined the IRC channel, and I nagged Phil Sparks, who was the expert at the time, almost constantly. Lots of inside jokes about how much I owe him when it comes to education. And from there, it built up slowly. We got a few more people on from the CodeIgniter side of the things. And my book was originally a set of tutorials on my blog. I think that helped to bring people over, because it was the first real set of educational materials on the framework. But around version 3, I became really involved with creating certain components for it. So I wrote the profiler in Laravel 3 that a lot of people liked.
I love that.
Yep, I really want to try and get one working for 4 again. I know that Taylor's shown me something that's kind of similar in a way. I don't know whether that was a throwaway or not, though, so don't get too excited about it. But yeah, I did that. I did a lot of work on the early websites for Laravel. Things like the paste bin, just to support the community, just loads of design work, minor contributions, and that sort of nested me in the core of the framework. I guess that's where I got my name from, that and writing these articles that later became Code Happy. Lately, Taylor. Well, as you know, Taylor does most of the work on the framework, and I will push back something if I come across it in my day-to-day work and I feel like there's something missing. That's normally where my contributions come from. But mostly it's writing about the framework lately. Taylor still, chats to me on a regular basis, and I like to feed back on the ideas that he has. So I like to think that's useful as well.
I think the support network around the framework is absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's unparalleled to any of the others, isn't it?
I think, like you said, the documentation is really important, but just being approachable is probably more important. Just getting people to be excited about the framework and to start using it. And if you don't get help with what you're working on, then you're not going to have that enthusiasm.
Sure.
So do you use Laravel on a day-to-day basis then at your work?
I do, yes.
Awesome.
I can't say too much about what I'm working on, but we're working on a service-based platform at the moment, and several parts of it use Laravel.
Cool.
Yep. I could say a bit more about my the company that I work.
Yeah, please do.
Awesome. So I work for a London-based startup called Park at My House. Have you guys heard of them at all?
I have actually had a look at the website. Yep.
This is question number 6.
Okay. Do you want to mention question number 6? I'm sure that I'm answering it in the correct way, or
all it was, just literally how it came about, and also other significant projects that you might have going on at the moment. So mainly how it all came about. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So I'm not working on the current site, the current website that you're seeing there. We've got got something very new and exciting on the way. But the idea for the company came from a guy called Anthony Eskenazi, who's my boss. He's the founder of the company. He was out at a ball game out in the US and desperate for somewhere to park, and the idea came into his head. All of these people have got extra private driveways and pieces of land that's private that other people could be using. Why aren't we making use of this when parking is such a problem? So the idea of Park at My House is not only can you go on there to find really cheap and really convenient parking, but you could go on there as a property owner, list your driveway or driveways, set up instant bookings, and you can just make passive income, which is fantastic. I'm sure
it's a great idea. It really is.
What sort of money are they charging for that?
The company itself, you mean?
No, the people to actually rent a parking space.
They can. The property owners can provide their own pricing model.
Oh right, okay.
Yep, and it's depending upon the amount of time, but you can price by day and you can price by week and things like that. It's a really flexible model. But essentially, the property owner will take 100% of what they're asking for. We take a small commission on top of what the driver pays, so you get exactly what you're asking for when you're a property owner.
Perfect. That's a great idea.
It is.
We're also hiring at the moment, by the way, for many technical positions. So if anyone's listening to this and they're interested, definitely get in touch with me. I'm Dayle at parkatmyhouse.com.
And we'll put all of it in the show notes and all that funky stuff.
Brilliant, thanks.
Along with my CV. Excellent.
And I'm sending you now.
Don't laugh at it.
Can we edit that bit out? We're all going to apply. Keep that bit out of the podcast.
Yeah. What kind of? So you said many technical roles. There, all sorts of kind of stuff. Is it or?
Yeah. We're always looking for interesting, skilled people. It's not so much about the role; it's about the person. It's about having the right attitude towards development, learning, and wanting to build something fantastic for our users.
Oh, that sounds pretty out. Damn it. But yeah, no, that sounds awesome. But that's an exactly right mantra, isn't it? I always think whenever we interview for developer stuff, one of the first questions I ask is what do you do in your spare time? Because you can sum up a person pretty much with that, I find.
Yeah, if it's a hobby, you know that someone's going to enjoy what they do if their work is a hobby. I also find that if you limit the amount of roles that you're looking to hire, then that really awesome guy could send you an email and you've hit your quota, and why aren't you making use of this awesome guy?
That's a really good way of looking at it.
We should be using that person.
Great. Yeah.
Cool.
Ed, you had 3,000 questions, didn't you?
I do have a couple. Yeah. So with the Laravel project, this is kind of but where do you see it going? I don't know any insider stuff, but more yourself. Where do you see the Laravel project going in the next, version 5 and so forth?
Well, I don't know if you saw the tweets recently, but Taylor was asking about possible integrations with front end tool sets and things like that. I quite like that idea, like a method of getting really started really quickly with the full setup, because obviously Laravel. Yeah, Laravel provides the framework right now, but you might be writing just say a back end for an Ajax app, a single page application. And you'll have to structure that yourself right now. You'll have to pull that into the framework. And some people like that control. I kind of like that control, but I know that a lot of people would like to just get started really quickly. So,
and it provides a good base, doesn't it, as well? You're on the right track if you're following this.
Yeah, it's reassurance, I suppose. Yeah, reassuring. I also I like the way that Taylor's headed with the whole experience. So right from building your first Laravel app locally with Homestead, just an incredibly easy process to deploying it in a click to Forge as well. So having that start to end experience, that's something that not a lot of frameworks have. In fact, I'm fairly sure that we might be the only one.
I think actually, it probably is the only one in the PHP world, and probably in a lot of other languages. I can't really think of any framework that actually does that.
Yeah, definitely.
Door to door kind of.
It's fantastic that Laravel is becoming something much bigger than a framework. It's more a whole workflow for a developer to ease the pain of a developer.
Do you think it could get a bit diluted on it, or do you think there's still enough time to focus on the framework side and Forge and Homestead and the front end?
Well, I still see that Laravel is advancing, and Taylor's always making calls for new features. So I'm pretty sure that he's definitely excited about what's upcoming in the future versions. I don't think we're definitely not done with the framework by any means, but we just want to provide just more services on the side. Anything that we can do to make developers' life easier or more enjoyable. So cool. I think it's worth it. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely agree. That's a great. How about you, Mickey?
In terms of the questions that I had?
Yes.
Yes. I think Lou has maliciously stolen all of my questions.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Don't. I guess one of my questions was going to be, and you kind of touched on it before already, but in terms of your loyalty to a framework, I mean, if something else came along, would you still feel like loyal to stick to Laravel, or are you always looking for the best thing, or what's your kind of mindset on that, really?
I obviously feel, with how long I've been involved in Laravel and how fond I am of the community, I'm always going to be, I'd like to think that I'll always be present there, and I'll always be enjoying the company of people there. But if something came along and smashed Laravel, just out of the scene, and I think even Taylor would be interested in seeing how that works and playing with it. I think that's the nature of a developer. You want the best tool for the job that you're doing, or the one that makes what you're working on as simple or as clean and as straightforward as you can. So I definitely have a go at it, but I don't. Yeah. I don't think the community that we have of developers, the Laravel community of developers would dilute if that happened either. A lot of the people that I know in the Laravel community were good friends in the CodeIgniter community. We tend to shift around. Luckily, not from Laravel recently.
Sure.
So that community's got a whole lot bigger. But if there was a new tool, I'd like to think that we'd all try it out together.
Yeah. I think that's a really good attitude. And like for me, I think one of my bad traits, if I'm putting my hands up, is I think I was definitely slow to get out of CodeIgniter because it's what I knew, and I was too loyal to CodeIgniter. And I remember, like, one of the things Ed first said to me was, like, never be loyal to your code, like always be willing to move on. And
definitely.
But now I completely agree. Like, moving over to Laravel, and I only really use it in my kind of spare time because at work we're kind of tied into the code base that we have at the moment. But it's definitely the way I want to push our company. But you can't really argue now that Laravel is using the most modern parts of PHP. And you have to, at the moment, I think you have to go that way, in my opinion.
And since most of the modern frameworks are also built on top of Composer or powered by Composer, it means that we don't, Laravel itself is a great framework as a package, but it's a collection of many other awesome things. And if another framework came along, I'd be willing to bet money that it would be using some of those core Laravel components just because of how fantastic they are. So I don't think it would be jumping ship in that sense. It would just be sharing. It would just be the
natural aggression, almost
experimenting. Yeah.
I think that's the great thing about Composer, isn't it? The fact that all these things that people have built, you're building on the shoulder of giants, and you're just building up and up without having to re-implement the stack each time.
Definitely. I find that your toolkit grows from day to day as well.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant piece of software.
One actually thing you are quite famous for is your colour themes, and I really do love them. They are amazing. You have a very good, colour palette. I don't know how to word this. Like, very good at working out what colours work match and everything.
Very nice eyes. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, beautiful eyes. So I was just wondering, like, I suppose you just started by doing them yourself and then kind of released them, but what they just become into this big old.
I could tell you how it started.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I love Sublime. It's sad that it's not been updated since December, actually, but I'm still using it right now. I'm not panicking yet. It's a fantastic editor.
It's not going to be a TextMate thing. It's like, no, TextMate.
I hope not. But I was using Monokai for ages, which is the default theme that comes with the pink and green and blue one. Amazing color scheme as well, like a great choice for a default color scheme for an editor. I'm a huge fan of design, color. I love that side of things. Like I've got a lot of time for designers and UX specialists and that kind of stuff. And I think that color and design plays a much more important role in things that we build than a lot of developers account for. And related to that, we spend most of our time in our text editors. I mean, we're nerds, and we do indeed. Faces rammed up against our laptop screens or our monitors, looking at these lines of code in probably Monokai is what it was before the themes came along. So I spent a lot of time there, and I did like Monokai, but I thought, it's horrible to be using the same thing all the time. It'd be amazing if I could try and beat this color scheme. I couldn't find anything else that was as nice to me. So I wrote a theme called Fresh Cut. I looked at how themes were made, and they're just XML. They're the TextMate format for Sublime as well. And I wrote Fresh Cut, which is like a bluey, greeny, fresh cut grass idea. Actually, that's not blue. No, I think the sky was the was the blue, possibly. Just one of those fresh summer days. And it went down really well. I shared it around the Laravel community originally. I know that Sean McCool was a massive fan of it. And it was really fun. I was using that for a long time. And then later I found myself in this exact same position where I thought, oh God, I've been using Fresh Cut for months now. Where am I going to find something better than this? So it was one of those weekends where, I thought I'll just hack on something. So I opened up the editor, and I made a theme called, what did I make after that? That was Peacock, actually, which is probably my most popular theme to date. So I wrote Peacock, and then I thought, hey, that was kind of fun. The day isn't over yet. I'll write a few more. So I probably wrote around 20 color schemes that day. Wow. And I pushed them to GitHub thinking, no one's going to use these. And the stars, I tweeted it as well, just in case anyone wanted them. And the stars on GitHub just kept rolling and rolling in, which, spurred me on to go and write more of these color schemes. I swear that weekend I must have wrote about 60 or so. I was taking requests at some point. So I know that Dan Horrigan had Earth Song. Who else? I obviously did there was one for Taylor, the Laravel one, and the Userscape guys had one. Also the major requests. I've now got one for Zach Kitzmiller. Yep. There's a theme in there called Zach's that's kind of like a purpley orangey like Halloween type theme. That's a fantastic one if you want to give that a go. He's a fantastic guy, so well worth dedicating that one to him. But yeah, it's crazy with how enthusiastic the devs are about it. So the package now is actually more than Sublime. I wrote like an MVC style generator for these themes, which means that I can map an editor pattern once and then apply all my themes to the whole thing. So yeah, I've got Sublime. I've got the UI of Sublime. Let me bring this up here.
Atom. I remember when Atom came out, there was like a massive Dayle, get on it, we need.
I got the invite in the morning from one of the GitHub guys, but I was unfortunately at a funeral that day, so I couldn't work on it right away, obviously. But I kept getting tweets all day. It was probably really unpolite to have my phone on at a funeral, but that's how it goes. And yeah, so I got home that same evening, looked at the format for it, and it turns out it's basically TextMate, but in CSS, so that the selectors were the same. It's just the format. And I was like, yes.
Boom, easy. That's the start.
So yeah, that same night I got the Atom themes out. Now I've got the Atom UI themes as well. They're on the way. I've got Coda. I've got the JetBrains editors,
which I'm very happy about.
They still need some work. I've got to admit they're a little bit behind when it comes to Sublime, but they're absolutely massive files. It's one of my pet pains. I still need to nail that, but I've generated things like bootstrap templates for the variables files to match. Pretty Print, the Google Pretty Print samples that you use on websites, as well as there's Xcode there now. And essentially I can write a file once and generate it for all the themes.
That's so cool.
It's really cool.
So with your color choices, do you go through the same type of math and stuff with Solarize did? Because I think they did this whole which math. I don't know what they did. Some crazy thing.
Solarized, you can use. It's the same color set on both light and dark backgrounds. So they're neutral to both of those backgrounds. I'm not that clever, so I.
Well, no, yours are great. This is the thing. I look at yours, I'm just like, I love them, and it's just great to go through them.
I just go with what feels kind of cool.
Yes.
I found sometimes that
you have beautiful eyes. There we go. I've said it again.
Then I'll go back to the repo every now and again, and I'll go, hey, let's go and add another color scheme to this. I think I'm gonna make a nice green one today. So I'll start with some green color tones, and then about halfway through, I'll find that I'll have created kiwi again.
You're like, this looks familiar.
So like the more that I make, the more that happens. But every now and again, I'll find that color combination that's different from what I've done already, and it'll just be a massive win. One of the ones that I like that I've made recently that felt different to the others. There's a couple actually. There's bold and there's tribal. Those two feel different. I was so pleased with myself when I was done. I know that sounds terrible, but just having made something different to the other 100 is a challenge sometimes.
I think it's a massive
challenge.
Giving them
a name's a challenge as well.
Yeah, how do you think of names? Do you just have a random name generator? Or?
There is normally there's normally a link between the colors and the theme and the name, but sometimes I just go for whatever's there. I'm looking through the list now for some examples. So actually, this one was a request. Tron Legacy, which I've shortened to Legacy now. So it's got the bold, the extra colors that they added in when Disney redid that. I don't know if I should be paying royalties on some of these names. That's kind of worrying. I'm trying to think of a good naming example, flicking through the page. Have you guys seen the page?
The generated page is awesome. Just a nice way of being able just to go through and see, because like it's sometimes it's hard to like check and see which ones you prefer.
Yeah.
And being able just to go through, I really do love that.
Awesome, that's good to hear. So I've got a theme here called Glowfish, which is probably no one's favorite theme, but it's a very like dark green and murky theme with some bright yellows and oranges sticking out, and it's just, I guess I just looked at that and went, Glowfish. I see fish just in the background of a murky tank or something like that. I'm a weird person.
Well, I use them every day and I love them, so
Thanks
keep going. Yeah, it's great.
Dayle, can I ask one more question? Have you got time to fill one more?
I've got as much time as you need. I've finished work for the day.
Absolute legend. Okay, thank you. I was just going to say, one of the like recurring themes that we have in our podcast series, really, and like you said, we really tried to target beginner programmers because that was something that we found really satisfying, and it was always our objective. If we could just get one person into development who was thinking about it, it would be success for our show. But
definitely.
One of the recurring things that we've had is this kind of idea of how important it is to understand what's going on under the hood. We've often used like the analogy of like, do you need to know what's going on in the bonnet, under the bonnet of your car, or do you just need to know how to drive it? And you kind of spoke about this before, but I just wanted to speak about it a little bit more specifically. But we talked about like a beginner using a framework.
Yeah.
And in my own kind of experience, my progression as a developer, which is far from complete, I still consider myself to be a complete noob, to be honest with you. But my kind of progression has been from procedural code to OO code to then using a framework. And just now, I would kind of put myself in the position that I'm just learning about design patterns. And okay, I've been using design patterns for as long as I can remember, but without knowing that I was using them. And especially in frameworks, there's a lot of stuff going on. Design patterns, like you say, really clever, intelligent, beautiful code that's doing that for you. But it's impossible to give an exact number, I guess, but how good do you think you have to be as a developer to use a framework, and how important do you think it is for that developer to understand the code in the framework before they use it?
I like to think with the amazing documentation that we have in Laravel. Of course, this is different from framework to framework, but we've got the amazing docs. We've got Laracasts. Without blowing a whistle, it's we've got my CodeBright book as well. I like to think the entry barrier is quite low. But what I always say about learning a new skill, and not even programming in general, is that you have to be driven by curiosity.
Yes.
So you have to be making something and then tweaking it and seeing how things are changing and building up to something much bigger. And like, you'll find that your enthusiasm and your curiosity will drive you to learning new things and picking up extra tools. So for myself, it was scripting pages together. And like, I found it's like, oh my god, using this header, like why do I have to change something in a header of a web page on every single page that I do? And then you like have a look around, oh boom, includes done. And I don't know, I've said includes a lot today, but I don't know if it's just me. When you're starting with PHP, is include the most exciting thing in the world? Or
Yes.
Includes and functions.
It's like, wow, this is see this opens up so many doors.
Yeah.
And then you get an include hell, but yeah.
And that's the curiosity though. That's it. You see that and you think, oh my god, how much more can I do with this now? This is going to be so exciting. And if you're trying to delve into something at too low a level, or you're not seeing results as you're working along, you're just going to get bored and you're going to stop doing it. But I think a lot of the frameworks and the educational materials for those frameworks are starting to realize that now. And they're getting you to see results and see what's happening as things go along. They're not just throwing a load of techniques at you. I think having that drive is the most important part. It's not about the entry level, it's about getting feedback on what you're learning.
I think that's a really good argument, actually, because actually we're kind of saying that, like if you use it, okay, you might not understand it first, but it's actually going to put you on a really good learning path. It's actually going to guide you through things, and you're going to learn all the right things as you go along.
Subjects that Jeffrey Ray's covered on Laracast is amazing. And you can learn so many other non-Laravel based stuff. Just even if you don't really use Laravel, you'll benefit massively on there. But
I think one of the great things with Laravel as well, and I'm sure a lot of people will parrot this, is that the framework kind of grew with us. So a lot of us were using it at 2.7, where it had fewer features, but it was really exciting about the syntax of the framework. Syntax of the framework sounds silly, but I mean about how simple and clean it looks. And then we got 3.0, where it was hugely, it had a ton more features to it. It was really exciting to work with, but we had the limitation of these real static methods. Testing was very difficult with 3.0, and then like the whole PHP community became kind of nuts on testing, and Laravel 4 came out with its its container at the heart, essentially a service locator, and pushing best practices like dependency injection, and promoting testing. It's like the framework grew with us. So I'm really excited to see where the core changes of future Laravel versions take us, and what new best practices they promote, and how it's gonna improve ourselves as developers, essentially.
It really has made, if you're using Laravel, it's a crime not to be testing, because it's so easy to test it with it, and like the ability to the facades and all that funky stuff. Obviously won't go into the name, and still don't know why, I don't know why people care so much, but that's what people are like.
I guess when you get attention, someone's gonna pick on something.
That's it, exactly. And it's just a great idea as well. I think that's the trouble, because people thought, I hadn't thought of that. Damn it, let's have a go at the name instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, the ability to testing and using, and also it's using all these cool things in PHP the right way. Stuff like, that's a good way to use closures, and that's a good way, because you get all this funky new syntax and traits now as well, actually, like in 4.2, so this is where I can use traits, because I don't know if you're like me, like, well, we did with the include thing, you're like, this is cool, and you start using it kind of everywhere.
And
you're just like, no,
you know what it does.
Yeah, and you're like, that's a place to use a trait, and you realize like a week later, no, it wasn't, but I just really wanted to use it.
I find that something that was interesting for me was I was really lucky to get to know Taylor during the work on version 3, and I like to think that we've become good friends because of that. So when Laravel 4 was in really early development, I got sneak peeks of what he was working on at the time. Like right at the start, it was heavily built on top of Silex. I don't know if that's a known thing, but the first version of Laravel 4 was Silex with a bunch of really nice, nicely presented components on top. But Taylor came to me with some of these things, showing me what he'd done. And I think that my development, I just wasn't at the level to understand what this genius was doing at that time. So a lot of it was really excited, but I was worried that it might be overly complex for developers. So I was scared at first, and as he showed me new features and told me more about the architecture, the framework, once he'd switched off Silex, I was learning from him, and I was learning from reading the source of the framework. And I'd say just the process of learning how Laravel 4 works internally, that increased my development ability by, like, I don't want to put a percentage on it. I just got much better as a developer at that point.
Yeah,
Laravel has definitely pushed my development, especially in the PHP world. It's just opened the doors to so many things, and it's just a great, like as you say, like IOC, DIC and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course you can go to the Symfony, but like coming from the Code Igniter world to that, and it really has completely just changed the world of what we're in the PHP world of what we do.
Yeah, it's part of what's making a PHP developer respectable now.
And that's very true. Yeah, exactly. Not getting laughed at. We're just include hell again.
Do you guys ever hide that at all? Have you ever hidden the fact that you're a PHP dev?
Or
you like out and proud?
It's all I've ever been.
I did, but then I somehow, this sounds really bad. Sometimes I actually say, I'm a PHP dev. I know I'm an OO PHP dev, and I do it in a Java way. And I don't know even why I say that, because it's like, no, I'm a PHP dev. I have to almost like kind of convince myself, it's okay to be a PHP dev. But yeah, it's a funny one.
Is this mostly around Java devs?
Yes, it is. It's like in a Java way, where like, C# and your .NET frameworks. Like, I do it, in a Java,
Yeah, I completely agree. I've never hidden it, but I've been in like seminars where we've gone round and introduced ourselves and said what we know. And
you've kept yourself in the closet, yeah.
Well, I've definitely felt eyes on me, like when I've said I'm a PHP developer. I have felt kind of, I don't know.
I love it because they instantly assume something, and then you'll start talking about like IOC or dependency injection, and they're in Java, and they're like, I don't know, Spring does it for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that what you use? It's like,
but I have, like I've told you guys 1,000 times, but I've had lecturers who've slagged off PHP in lectures, and you think that's crazy, really. But like you say, they're probably their understanding of PHP is something
PHP
from
4. It's PHP 4, 3 or 4 before, all the shiny stuff came in 5.3 and greater.
It's a different language now. It's
it is.
Language.
Yeah.
Almost
absolutely.
We should call it 6 now, Jacob. Won't go into that.
I guess it's not the most charming name either, is it? No. PHP.
No.
Like we've got other languages like Ruby and Swift and Python.
Yeah, PHP just sounds a bit corporate. A bit. Yeah, even Java sounds quite nice.
It sounds like either corporate-y or a form of drug, I guess. But I guess it is a kind of drug to a lot of people. So that's fair.
Yeah.
Should we just call it Elephant? Should we just, get it out there?
Yeah.
Or PHPanda will do it.
PHPanda,
maybe we can push that.
So how far into the book are you, the new book, PHPanda?
PHPandas is, I'd say, probably around 70% done. I may think of more as I go along. It's a much shorter book than CodeBright, because it's an introduction to the PHP language. It will cover OO towards the end of the book, but it's everything from basic types to assignment to mathematical operations, all the way up to creating classes and using traits as well. So I'm focusing on PHP 5.4 and above.
I'm going to definitely be recommending that to because we've got a couple of my friends, they want to start programming, and I'm definitely.
Well, I'm testing it out on my girlfriend who doesn't code at all. Yet.
And then she'll be better than you, and you'll be like, no.
Also, a number of workmates have been interested in it, so they've had early copies of it. And if anyone's listening and they'd like to, I'd like guinea pigs who haven't really done any development before. That would be really useful to me. So let me know, and I'd be happy to ship out a preview.
Awesome.
Get some feedback on that. Be great.
What's the ETA on the main launch then?
Okay, so I'm going away to Malta sort of middle of next month. I'm hoping to sort of finalize it on that trip. Like, I'm not gonna, I'm not one of those people that shuts off completely when they go on holiday. I like the idea of writing a little bit on the beach or something like that. That sounds absolutely fantastic to me, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm dribbling at the thought of that right now. But what I'd like to do is finish off anything remaining and put the polish on the book as necessary. Also, my translator, or my head translator, has had early access to the book in its current form, so I'm hoping to get the language translations out a little bit sooner than they were with CodeBright. I know that we've got 6 or so people interested for definite already. Some really useful languages there. So as long as they're okay with it, I'll probably be launching it when I get back.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Guys, I'm thinking, I know we could all speak to Dayle for hours because it's so interesting, but we have gone over the hour mark, and I'm thinking maybe we should all have one last quick fire question.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay.
So do you want me to go first? Because I've got mine.
I'll go for it, yeah.
That's all right. Yeah. So a quick fire question is going to be, do you go to any meetups, and are you doing any talks this year?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Okay, so my company, we're sponsoring Laracon EU, so I know that we've got a slot for a lightning talk. I don't know if it's going to be myself or someone else yet. Yeah. I've obviously given a talk at New York earlier this year. I go to Unified Diff quite regularly in Cardiff, which is a kind of development/tech meetup monthly. So it's a great place to come along if you fancy it. I'm looking to this month or early next month start a Laravel Cardiff group. So I know there's been a lot of interest in that. I'm just finalizing a location, and this is probably a little bit early to be saying this, but I'm in the early planning stages of possibly a Laracon UK based in London.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I know there's a lot of interest in that, but I'll be getting something official out soon to gather further interest, because I'm quite grateful that my the company that I work for, Park at My House, they're willing to support me on that if there's interest in it. So
that'll be a problem.
That should be exciting.
Yeah.
I think you'll get plenty of interest for that. Definitely.
Here's hoping.
Wow.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. Ed.
So my question is, if you weren't programming in PHP, what would you be programming in?
Java.
Ooh. I'd like to say Swift right now, but no, I do really like Ruby as a language, I have to admit. I think the part that I don't like about Ruby is just getting the right version.
Yeah!
Just
like Python as well.
Going.
Yep.
Yeah, but as a language, it's fantastic. I love how you can just like really interrogate objects, and how everything reacts in the same way.
Monkey patching and
such a great language, and really fun and hipstery.
That's it. With Node, I thought it'd be JS. I thought go with the Node hipsters.
I'd say that I'm not as good as most people would think in JavaScript. I feel like I definitely need to work at it. I've been playing a lot with single page apps recently, trying to improve it, but I find Ruby more fun. Definitely.
Awesome.
Cool.
And then Lou.
I've got a choice of 2 here. So I've got taking Laravel out of the equation. What are your other favourite tools and recommendations? Or what is the single newest thing that you've learnt?
Or both.
Or both.
Okay.
Both, yeah.
I'll go for both if you like.
Okay. Lucky me.
The newest thing that I've learned, honestly, it's probably Swift, playing around with Swift and learning Objective-C. It's still very much in process, but I love creating things. I quite like front end work, and UI work. So I think I could make some really fun iOS apps if I could get into that, and possibly help out my company as well, which would be fantastic. Exciting tools. There's a ton of, do you guys follow, the GitHub Explore newsletter at all?
No.
Yeah, so if you go to GitHub/explore maybe, or I'll find the link and you guys can post it somewhere if you like to.
That'd be great.
But there's a newsletter that you can sign up to. It's /explore. There we go. And it will send out some of the more interesting trending libraries each day. And I love waking up in the morning and checking out all these awesome PHP packages that are available there. So I tend to collect a lot of those. I can't pick out any in particular, but there's things that get added to my toolkit almost daily. Besides that, Composer, definitely the most exciting project out there in PHP right now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, I think we're going to have to call it. I think we could have you on the show for the next 3 episodes, to be honest with you, and we still wouldn't have finished grilling you. But at the fear of rejection, I'm just thinking maybe if you're up for it, maybe you come on again, maybe when your new book's out, and maybe when you know a little bit more about whether Laracon UK is a goer or not.
That sounds great to me.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Like with all our guests, we always appreciate people giving up their free time to come on and talk about their background. And you've been absolutely brilliant guests. Thank you so much. So, but we'll have to wrap it up.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Dayle.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
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 You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.